Hi, Professor Lawrence. I'm
Yes.
I'm a year two marine biology students, and I want to ask you about the role of CBIT in carbon sequestration. So my first question is, do you think we should utilize CBIT as one of the main carbon sequestration solution?
Uh, yes, definitely, but it should not be the only one. There are also many other marine plants that we can tap, seaweeds being one of them. I will just mention here that seagrasses and mangroves also play a very important role. Perhaps a bigger role because of the fact that the seagrasses and mangroves can sequester more carbon than the seaweeds taken together. Why? Because the seagrasses, for example, uh, 50% of their biomass is under the ground. So they are able to bury and sequester the uh, the carbon into their biomass into the ground far better than seaweeds, because the seaweed, most of it is just above the ground. So once the seaweed dies, for example, the some amount of carbon is released back into the environment. So
But
that's an overview. Yeah.
but I found one article say they try to calculate the the quantity of carbon
Yeah.
sequestered by seaweed,
Yeah.
and they do it globally, and they find
Ah,
seaweed, the amount of seaweed sequestered carbon is greater than coastal angiosperm habitat.
correct. I agree. I agree. When I said seagrass is higher sequestration, is just like a per biomass basis, like one ton of seagrass can absorb more carbon than 1 ton of seaweed. But I agree with you that overall around the world, there's more amount of seaweeds compared to seagrass.
So that
Yeah.
means for this question, seaweed should be utilized as one of the main carbon sequestration solution, right?
Oh yes,
Thank you.
I agree. Yeah, yeah. But you need
So,
to propagate them so much. Yeah.
and my second question is, some experts say if we use seaweed as we use seaweed as the main carbon sequestration solution,
Mm.
and it will have unknown ecological impact, because if we sink tons of the detritus into the deep sea, we don't know what effect will cause to the ecological role. So
That's true. Yeah, that's true. And I think studies are ongoing because we really don't know, especially if detritus could sink down to the deeper part of the sea. The deeper part of the sea with the fauna there, it's very, very poorly known. So, and likewise, the carbon and nutrient dynamics in the deep sea is still a big question mark. So right now, I think scientists are just looking at the maybe short-term effect. So of course, it's very important to know the long-term effect. But I agree with you that it's still a big question mark, and we still don't know. So right now, we are just consoled by the fact that when we have more seaweeds, there is potentially more carbon sequestration going on. But what happens afterwards it still remains to be seen.
so my last question is, how can we attract the attentions of investors or philanthropists to fund for seaweed carbon sequestration research?
Mm. Oh wow, that is difficult. Okay,
Yeah.
now these people, especially if they don't have enough science background, they need to be educated first. They need to be told first what is the possible impact? What is how this impact could affect their ordinary day-to-day life? And this is one of the challenges of what I call the science journalism, because see, people who work in the science, they generate a lot of this new information, useful information. They generate a lot of these hypotheses about what will happen if you do this, you do that, but only very little portion of this knowledge is ever transmitted to the society. Very little is translated into language that is fully comprehensible by people in society who have little or no science background. So in fact, this is one of my personal crusade. I like to promote science journalism, because the divide between the science and non-science is just so wide. And yet these people who have no science background, people in society in general, these ought to benefit from the outputs of science, which is happening now, but so little. So I always emphasize to my students that it's not enough to do science. It's not enough to experiment. It's not enough to talk about phenomenon in nature. You should do one more, and you have to communicate that to the end users. I believe the society is the beneficiary, should be the beneficiary of all this information, but it's not happening in many countries. So going back to your question, how will you convince the funding agency? Precisely by telling them how this can impact you, how this can impact your business. Okay, if it impacts on your business negatively, your business can lose money. So why not invest in scientists like us? Give us money to do research, and we will share with you our outputs. We will share with you our results. Together we can, solve the problem and make the environment better for you, your business, and for everybody. I think it is our duty as scientists to be able to communicate outside of our own community. The same way, if you can convince your funding agency, the big corporations, the philanthropists like that, the philanthropists are only waiting for your proposal to give their money. The philanthropist is just a lot of money waiting to give to the right people who can come up with good projects.
So that means as a scientist, we should not just focus on research, but we also have to communicate to
Exactly.
To convert.
Exactly.
I think that's all for my questions. Thank you for your